Systems engaged. Frequencies synchronized. Prepare for incoming transmission. Coming to you from somewhere in the multiverse, this is Robots from Tomorrow. This show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, and as always your podcatcher of choice. For the full archive featuring over 800 episodes of comics and comics-friendly content like interviews, book discussions, and freeform tomfoolery, please go to robotsfromtomorrow.net. Here is your host, Greg.
Hello everybody, welcome to the show, or welcome back to the show, whichever the case may be. This is, as it says on the door, Robots from Tomorrow. My name is Greg. Thank you for joining me. We had a very successful September, new episodes posting every Thursday. Things slowed down a little bit in October, but now that Baltimore Comicon is in the rearview mirror, we are locked and ready for the bi-weekly pace through the rest of 2025 and beyond. Speaking of Baltimore Comicon, today's episode is the first of two panels I hosted at that show. Tools of the Trade featured Zoe Thorogood, Jeff Smith, David Petersen, and Stan Sakai talking about all the items in their creative arsenals that let them keep up their Eisner-stacked outputs. Next week, on November 6th, we are finally getting to the Lettering Drawing in a Different Way panel from HeroesCon 2024. The week after that, on November 13th, it's back to Baltimore for the Stan Sakai Spotlight. And 2 weeks later, we close out November with a Thanksgiving Day look at the very beginning of the Chris Claremont X-Men run, focusing on classic X-Men 1 through 3. How does Claremont's special edition / revised draft of these opening issues hold up? Check us out after your tryptophan coma wears off, and we'll tell you our thoughts. But for now, it's back to the Baltimore Convention Center for artist insight and craft observations from David Petersen, Jeff Smith, Stan Sakai, and Zoe Thorogood.
Welcome to the Tools of the Trade panel at this year's Baltimore Comicon. My name is Greg Natasevich. I host a podcast called Robots from Tomorrow, and I want to be very upfront about one thing. We are going to be defining tools very loosely here. Sure, we're going to talk about pens and boards and ink and stuff like that, but I hope we can explore the less tangible tools in these creators' toolboxes, the ones that help them put those lines on the page and get them through the times when they're eyeball deep in the creative trench and can't see straight anymore. Because honestly, the body of work represented by these four creators doesn't come from a special pen or a particular ink. It comes from four unique toolboxes put together through trial and error, and that is what we're here to talk about today. So, introducing this Eisner-stacked panel, we have David Petersen for mouse guards, Stan Sakai, Zoe Thorogood, and Jeff Smith. Let's kick things off with this. It's a new day. You're sitting down to do some next level comic booking, as you do. What is something, or the main thing, that would make you say, uh-oh, I can't comics unless I have blank?
Say that again?
Okay. All right.
I can't make comics?
Right. You're like, I'm sitting down to do my work. Oh, I can't do that unless I have this. What is the tool that you're like, this doesn't work unless I have this particular thing?
I got an odd one. It's a light pad, or a light, like a light box, but I use a light pad. I happen to use a Huion brand, but I use it for overlaying sheets of copy paper to refine drawings rather than try to erase and redraw over the top of stuff. I also use it, I kind of use it like a real-life digital component, because if I draw something and realize, oh, I've got the hand over in the wrong place, or I want to replace the hand, I just draw a new hand, and then when I'm transferring to do a tighter drawing, I can move the sheet underneath to pull that hand or that eye or whatever I drew wrong into place, or swap out for a replacement thing. So it's almost like digital layers, but with paper on a light pad.
I use a light pad too, because I get to trade David Peterson's artwork. No, I have a morning routine. I make my peach ginger tea, and I do my morning exercises. This is in my studio, and then turn on DVD. I don't have internet in the studio, and so that's when I have my morning routine and start to work. It depends upon what I'm working on that day, whether I'm writing, penciling, inking, lettering, whatever. So.
Okay.
I'm gonna say probably one thing I can't do comics without is headphones. I've made my comics in the most makeshift, crappy places with random pieces of paper and pencils from the floor and stuff. But if I'm not zoned in,
Pencils from the floor.
yeah, my first book was made from some interesting materials. But yeah, if I'm not zoned in, that's not gonna happen.
Okay.
Similar to me, I need music, specifically Beatles music.
Any particular album or?
Sgt. Pepper for me.
Okay. Beatles solo work? Are you basically?
Solo work, yeah.
So it's any Beatle, any connection to them?
Well, I listen to other stuff.
Well, yeah, but in terms of that thing. All right. Now, this may be more of a process question, but it's one that I like to ask, so I'll try and adapt it here. Which tool do you enjoy using more, a pencil or a pen? Do you enjoy the penciling, problem-solving stage of putting the comics together, or more of an inking, illustrative type of stage of the process?
Well, I don't use a pen in any way, so I like the pencil better.
Okay.
Yeah, I use a pencil and then a paintbrush. to
Okay.
Ink.
So then okay.
I'm
sorry.
I was gonna say, I remember when we traveled on the trilogy tour, watching you ink. I was more impressed with the way you cleaned your brush.
Oh.
I mean, you were so loving with it. You got the little Kleenex and then you just dabbed the base of the brush and everything. When I used to use a brush, I just jam it in a block of soap to clean it off. But you were just so, it was so delicate. I was just amazed.
I used to go through the 2 paintbrushes per issue of a comic because they just got crummy. You just have to, whenever you're done with it, give it some water and just roll it on a paper towel so it pulls all the ink out of the brushes.
I used to just wash it with some bar soap and then suck it to make a nice point. But I was just amazed watching you work.
Well, I now use one brush lasts me like years. Just keep it clean, man. And suck it to a tip.
Sorry, Zoe.
There you go.
I've forgotten the question.
I'll shorten it to say, do you prefer problem-solving penciling sort of aspect of your thing, or more of an inking, illustrative? You don't have to think; you just need to move the
Well,
pencil.
for me, I'm a really mad penciler. I think I love getting to the inking stage and doing all of the stuff there. I don't know why this started, but I think it's because I see in my head already where the page is going. Penciling is just like the middleman stage. You don't see the pencils. At least with me, all my stuff is inked. You don't see the pencils, so I just want to get to inks as fast as possible. So I think my pencils are so shoddy, but I like to trust myself with the ink to just know where it needs to go. And I'm luckily not a perfectionist. I think a lot of artists are perfectionists. I never got that gene. And so when things go wrong, it's just, you move on. I like doing like texturing and stuff, just freehand, just, see where it goes. Yeah, inking for me.
Yeah, myself too. My pencils are very loose, and I do most of my drawing with a pen. Actually, this pen, it's a Koh-i-Noor sketch pen. It was, I guess they stopped making it about 30 years ago, but I have another 20-year supply of pens. Well, when I heard they were discontinuing this, I drove all around LA to all the art stores, all the stationery stores, and bought up whatever I could find. And I have about another 20 years, and whenever one like this one, I'm going to retire. Well, I should retire now. Not because it's bad, but because I use 2 of these pens. One that's more broken in, it has a nice flexible tip, and I use it for foreground characters. I have a stiffer one, a newer one for background characters, and the one I'm using for background now is getting kind of loose, so I'm going to replace it. So I'll get rid of this or sell it or something.
Yeah, the inking stage for me is place I feel more comfortable. And I don't think it's a stage where you don't think. I think it's a different kind of thinking. The penciling is so wide open. Everything is still a possibility, but to the point where it's like it's infinite. Like I need some constraints. And by the time I have something penciled, there's still lots of decision making so that I can pull foreground elements forward, background elements back, anything in the midground where it needs to be, or if I need to pull attention to a certain spot. All the texture, the line weight, the light on dark, there's lots of decision making that I leave for that inking stage. I'm not doing that in the pencils. But still a lot of thinking, a lot of problem solving, but it's within constraints where I'm like, this is now just a puzzle to solve instead of, it's like somebody coming up and asking you a question, asking for a critique, and they have a specific, how do I do this better, as opposed to a student coming up and saying, what is art? Yeah, that's a hard one to answer. That's what penciling is for me. It's still, everything's an option.
Okay. I want to pick up on something Stan was just talking about. What do you do, obviously we know what Stan does, what do you do when you have come to rely on a tool and then it gets taken away for whatever reason? Either you're on the road and you leave it in a hotel room on the convention circuit, or the manufacturer is like, nah, we're going to stop making this thing that you've based your entire workflow on. Can you talk about that?
That happens a lot, especially for those who work traditionally on paper with a pen or brushes and things, such as inks. Inks have changed, and now most of them clog up the pens. So I've tried different other inks. I've even tried to concoct my own ink. I found a Japanese brand, Platinum Black Opaque, that works wonderfully. It's permanent, it's waterproof when dried, and it works great for me. But it's a matter of finding something that would replace what you wanted.
I think there's a balance between doing what Stan talked about earlier, which is, this is going to run out eventually, but I'm going to hoard as much as I can. I'm going to resist the change of finding the new thing. I'm just going to be Smog in his cave with all my paper, all my specific paper, all my pens, all my inks, and then also just going, this is no way to live life. I have to be flexible enough that if something, I can find some kind of replacement. I'm actually in that position right now digitally. I'm using an older version of Photoshop where I'm very happy with where everything is, pre-subscription model, and I'm actually at the point where I can't upgrade my computer because the newer OSs won't run this version of Photoshop, which also means all other kind of things are starting to become outdated. I can't use certain websites because it's like, your browser is out of date. You have to update, and I can't do that without, so I just have this computer just going, and I realize at some point, this is not sustainable.
Yeah.
But I'm going to keep it going as long as I can.
What you had mentioned about hoarding, and I used to use an old FW ink, and they switched the formula to an acrylic base. And when I heard they were going to do that, I ordered as many as I can, like 2 dozen models. And so I called my friend Zoe Thorogood and said, I'm ordering some FW ink. Would you like me to order some for you? And he said, no, I talked to the manufacturer. I just bought a gallon of it. That's hoarding.
Wow.
Well, I never faced that issue. I've only been drawing comics for about 5 years now. But now I'm panicking.
I mean,
I started, and I use a pen. I think it's a writing pen. It's called a Pilot G-Tech, and it's a really quite horrible pen to use, actually. And the reason I started using it was because when I was making my first book, I lived in a student house with about 11 other people, and I was sat down by the kitchen waiting. I needed to cook some pasta. Really boring story, I know. And I was waiting for the kitchen to be used. There was like 3 people using it, and so I was just sat there on the couch being like, "God, what do I do?" And I had a little piece of paper, and somebody left a pen on the side. I started drawing this character just kind of just freehand, and it ended up being the main character for my first comic. And because I used that pen to do the sketch, I thought, I should draw the whole book in this pen. Soon learned that it's a horrible pen to draw with, but 6 years on, I'm still using it. It works for me. It's like, ink is very black, it's very fluid, it forces you to move fast for some reason. It just works for what I'm doing, but it's...
Well, what you just said is the key. It works for me.
Right.
Yeah, that's the key for sure.
Yeah.
I brought some of my brushes.
Oh.
So that,
The gasp. rolls throughout the
Get him!
The first thing is the blue pencil. And I learned this because when I started drawing comics, I was going to the Ohio State University. And there's a cartoon library called the Billy Ireland Cartoon Library and Museum. And it's an amazing place. And once I got to know all the librarians and the curators that worked there, I got to go back to the archives, like the Indiana Jones archive room filled with Milton Caniff's Terrier Pirates and
Winsor McCay.
Winsor McCay.
I saw Walt Kelly's phone bills there. They have everything.
Yes, they have papers and comics, and Walt Kelly, who specifically who I wanted to see. And Walt, he drew the comics in blue pencil. And I didn't know why at that time. And I said, well, why? It is explained to me that this is a non-photo blue pencil. And your artwork, which is black ink on white paper, is shot with a high contrast camera, which can only see black or white. So people who use a regular pencil, like the Hernandez brothers, they have to erase their regular pencils, and it gets rid of some lines sometimes if you're not really careful. So blue pencil is a trick of the trade. That's a lot of cartoonists use that. And then I have watercolor brushes. So it's just like a #1 Winsor Newton sable hair brush. And I just dip it in ink. Do I have anything else interesting? I don't know. Oh, yeah, this is important. Whiteout. Now, if you do all your work with the Cintiq or something, you don't need whiteout, it just goes away. But for us old people, this is very important because you make mistakes, but sometimes you forget to draw a hand the right way or whatever the mistake might be. But it's just whiteout, it's just white acrylic paint, a little watered down a little bit. And you just cover it and it fixes it everything, just so you get another shot at it. So those are really, an eraser is also similarly important.
Right. Good. Before we move on, one of the things I just wanted to mention was that with Zoe, I think there's one way to look at it, but also the flexibility that you have. Everyone else is like, I have this tool, I use this thing, and this. You were just like, I'll use anything, and I'll do that. And even starting, all right, the floor, the ceiling, it's stuck in whatever, I'll just pull it out and just start using it. And that flexibility is something I think other people can learn from or try to adapt to their two ends of the spectrum. One is like, I need this brush at this light at this day to do this thing. And then the other one is, well, whatever I can pick up, I can go with that as well. Part of storytelling is maintaining the reader's suspension of disbelief. And you can do that by being consistent in drawing setting and the worlds your stories take place in, even if they're worlds outside our windows. Can you talk a little bit about the tools you use to help you maintain the consistency of a setting? Let's say, for example, I want to do this issue of this comic in this locked room or locked house or whatever. Do you make it up as you go? Do you map out the house? Do you map out what's in every room that you're going to be in? What tools do you use to help you draw that in a way that maintains that consistency so that you can have the setting do the work that you need it to do when it's all in one setting?
This is a question.
Yeah.
You're crazy nuts about this.
Yes, I'm insane. I build physical architectural models of the settings. Part of that isn't just to keep me consistent, but I find that when I need to design a space, I'm actually way better at designing something that's interesting if I build it in 3 dimensions. If I'm just sketching something, those interiors become real boring. They become the inside of a cardboard box. It's just pretty basic. I stop adding columns or stairs or steps or plinths or anything. But
Holy shit.
a little bit of cardboard, a little bit of basswood, some styrofoam, and the beauty then is every panel I can explore what angle I want to use by just putting my phone.
How detailed do you go? Like if you do stairs, do you just put stairs there, just like, or do you actually show what kind of carvings are on? No. I
mean, sometimes if there is some kind of repeating pattern that would be like a carved thing, I might design one of that pattern in Photoshop, print it out on paper multiple times, and just glue it, making sure I measure it so it's roughly. I don't get precise.
Okay.
But it's not dimensional. It's just a lot of times it's just a veneer just to help keep that, like, especially if it's an irregular shape. If you did something like a quatrefoil or something like that.
I often draw quadrant.
Drawing quatrefoils in perspective is a lot of work. So if you just put it on something and then photograph it from all these different angles, I find that exploring the model actually helps me figure out angles too. Like I'll go, I've drawn so many panels in this room and it's feeling repetitive, it's feeling boring, and just scanning the room with the camera and finding cool shots and cool angles and going, that one feels moody. I need to do that when somebody's saying something dramatic. Or that one feels a little blah. Maybe that's good for a calm moment. I sometimes find the panels by exploring the model. And I like having the physical model, one, because I can just put it on a shelf and anytime I need it, like years later, go, oh, I'm going back to, the mice are going back to that city. Let's pull that model off the shelf. But the other reason is that it gets me away from the grind of the drawing table. I sit at a desk that has a computer and my light pad and pencils, and when I do that work, I switch to a different table that I don't have to worry about marring up the surface with X-Acto knives and glue. It gets my brain in a different place. I'm using my hands a little differently. It's just a nice, like, mini break to build a little model and then go back to work.
How long does it take you to build like a room?
It depends. Sometimes it's no more than a day. I have had people ask to exhibit the models. Like if I'm doing some kind of a show where they want to exhibit the artwork, they're like, can you have the models? No, because they're not going to ship. They're all made out of cardboard and hope. Like you're gonna have what looks like somebody's wastebasket when it arrives and you open the box. Recently, I did an exercise. I want to do a couple rooms that I knew that my cardboard models were already starting to sag a little under their own weight, and rebuild them nice. Like I'm doing this like it's going to be photographed as the end product. If anybody asks to exhibit the models, I have a couple that I can send. That is more of just a vanity project than anything about the work of that drawing the comics. That's just for fun. So I try to keep it not too elaborate. There's a push-pull, right? Like the more you invest early on, the easier it's going to be or longer it's going to last down the road. But there's a point of diminishing returns where if you spend way too much time making it perfect, you've really wasted time instead of saved it. So I try to find that middle ground. So it takes no more than a day to do an architectural model that's for drawing.
I'm sensing a theme here. You're analog to digital type of thing. Because what it sounds like you're doing is you're basically building an animatic for this particular thing. They'll just have their rough sketch of this thing, and then they can go in and move around their virtual camera and say, okay, I'm going to do this, do this, do this. You're like, I want to do that, but I don't want to use a computer. I'll just build it myself because I'm a handy guy.
Insane, yeah.
Okay, so anybody else for that? We can move on to another question.
Well, I was thinking that a tool is kind of just knowledge and experience. Because when I have a page with panels on it, I need to think about what are the characters doing? Is it going to be a close-up? Is it going to be a mid-shot? That is more important to me as far as experiencing it. And anything that can, if you need to have something in the background, it's got to be something that just talks about what kind of a room it's in. If they're in a kitchen, you might want to just have a countertop with a knife or a coffee cup on it or something. I don't get into too much every detail. Of course, I mostly draw barns and trees, so it's pretty forgiving.
For me, I construct the room in my mind. Like if Usagi goes into an inn, I know where the entrance is, how many tables are in the inn, where the windows are and such. When I'm drawing from different angles, I can imagine how the camera is moving. And I just don't have the patience that David has.
You have a lot more processing power than I do, then, if you can keep it all straight up here.
No, but it's incredible. When I saw your
insanity.
Yeah, buildings online, it's like, my gosh, this guy is obsessive.
No. Well, how? Accurate. So when you do a lot of historical, like there's historical references, how are you making sure that you're getting both architecture but also costuming? What kind of researching are you doing? What are your tools for making sure you're keeping that?
I used to watch a lot of samurai movies. So, like, a lot of it is And I also go to Japan about once a year. I do research there. I'm going back again next month, and I want to do a story about tea. And so we're visiting a tea farm, a couple of tea farms. And I've also done things like we did some volunteer work at a seaweed farm, and that was turned into a Usagi story. So yeah, I like to do on-site research if I can. Also, to the trip to Japan is that way. It's totally tax deductible.
Financial tool. Okay, so just to move a little more, we're talking about spending time with tools, what takes too much time, what takes not enough time. Let's talk about time management. What are some of your time management tools? What do you use to make sure that you're staying on track with these projects that can be many issues, many pages, many whatever?
I think one practical one I have is, this doesn't work for everybody, this probably just works because I draw really small, but my pages, my original art is like half the size of a standard comic page.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it doesn't work for everybody, I use these tiny pens, so it's, but I never, because my first book was drawn like that. And I had several people in the industry saying it's not standard and it's going to be printed only slightly smaller. And obviously with publishing, generally you want to draw it a lot bigger, so when it's shrunk down, it looks snazzy or whatever. So then the next project I did, I drew it in standard comic size, the way larger piece of paper. But I just found I had so much empty space where I was looking at it, like it was just so. It was like so in my face that when I stepped back from it, it just looked wrong somehow, or just like I was just ending up like just detailing for hours, just like these tiny little areas that just don't fill up any space. And so just drawing small, you can get away with it. Just think it saves so much time.
Yeah, that's fine. I think Linda Medley used to do it that way. She would draw just a 1 to scale, 1-for-1, and her art was wonderful.
I'm the worst person to answer this question, so I'm terrible. The only thing that came to mind, because I really am awful about time management, is a piece of advice I heard from Scotty Young, which I've never been able to employ properly, but it was about trying to speed up and you come up with some tasks, right? How long does it take you to thumbnail a page or whatever, right? And you time yourself, and then whatever that time is, when you do the next one, shave, and I think he said like 10 minutes off of it, and set an egg timer. And he's like, if you go over, don't go hang yourself over it, but just be aware that took too long, got to speed up. And then the next one, set that same time, keep shaving 4, 5, 6 minutes off on the egg timer. And he's like, by the end of a whole issue of doing thumbnails or whatever, you are going to have
shaved 20 minutes off.
You will, well, it has a point of diminishing returns, but you will have sped up without a loss of quality.
That sounds like such horrible advice. If I had a time, I'd be more concerned about.
Same.
I'd be concentrating more on the time rather than the work.
Sorry. I find setting a goal like per week, because I used to do a comic book that would come out every couple of months, sort of. And, but basically, it's about 25 pages or more, whatever. But I would say I try to do 5 pages. I write the script ahead of time and write the whole thing, so I know what's going on. I know what's happening basically on every page. So I'll do 5 pages at a time. I start that on Monday. I don't have to have everything finished, but I need to have the panels in there, lettered, everything at least penciled, and maybe the face is inked by the end of the week. And then I move on to the next 5. I keep going until I get the whole thing. Then I go back and fill in the backgrounds and the bodies and all that stuff. That kept me decently on schedule.
There was no feeling of, I didn't get that finished, I still have to go back and do backgrounds. There was none of that pull?
No, it's just like...
Lucky you.
It's building it up. Eventually you've got all of them going, and you go through and want to get all the faces completely done. Then I go through and get all the bodies done. It's easier to track how the characters are moving, especially if there's any movement or action going on.
I think the key is discipline. You need to have the discipline Like, before I used to have to do one issue every 5 weeks. Now that I've gotten older, it takes me more like 7 weeks. But I know I have a deadline, so I have to meet the deadlines. My best editor was Diana Schultz because she was a wonderful lady. She was like, but I was deadly afraid of her. And when she said, you have a deadline on the first, you better believe it. I turned in my work by the first. So you need someone like that who just a discipline that I know I have such a wonderful job, so I want to keep doing it.
That actually plays into another question that I have. You're handling the creative side of things, not to say the people are tools, but who do you use to help you with the non-creative parts of the business? What are some tools that you use for that larger management or sustainability?
My wife Julia managed a psychiatric office for a number of years, and
This is starting to make sense.
yeah.
Is that how it is?
It's not how we met. But what it meant was when she quit that job to become the business side of Mount Scar, she was fully prepared.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
My wife also, Vijaya, she was a computer scientist and had a job in Silicon Valley, and I could draw from anywhere. So I started Bone, and I think I was on the 6th issue when she got a job in Northern California. And we drove across the country, we moved out there. And we were there for about 2 years, and in the second year we were there, Bone really took off. And I couldn't keep up with it, because and not only was I writing and drawing and lettering the comics and making the covers, but all of a sudden, all the stores were calling me or sending me faxes saying they want 3 number 1s, 2 number 7s, 8 number 10s or whatever. And I was all week filling these boxes out of my closet. And all my issues were in my closet, and just filling these boxes. And I was starting to fall behind. And I finally asked V if she would help me run this company. And unbelievably, she said yes. She loves cartoons. She likes my cartoons. And so we're okay that way. But she also knows how to do math. She knows how to talk to business people. She has all the skills that are not on my...
She's very savvy.
She is super savvy, and she's good at it. So she deals with keeping the supplies on hand, warehouses, where everything has to be shipped. And we have also full-time employees that help her do that kind of stuff. So it's been great. We love the same kind of things, but we're skilled at very complementary things.
And also, too, you're not only the creators, you're also a publisher.
Yes.
So it's like, they have the business as well as the creative side. So.
True. I forget that. That's not normal.
When I got started in comics, I was completely broke, and I had a book deal, but there was no events. It was a very small publisher. We did a fantastic job, Avery Hill in the UK, fantastic publisher, but they're very small, so there's no events or anything. And so I was sort of selling pages as I was going, because I think every artist kind of, especially when they're starting out, very much undersells themselves. So I was selling for a minuscule amount. To me, it was cool. This is like $50, it's life-changing. And I got an art dealer pretty soon after that. People were seeing that, oh, she's selling her pages like for peanuts. This needs to stop.
Yeah.
And so I got an art dealer fairly quickly. And my art dealer has changed since then for various reasons. It's comic art. But anyway, I now have a fantastic art dealer that I try and recommend to young people that are starting out to keep drawing traditionally if you can. About half my income, or especially starting out, half my income was from selling original art. I had no idea how much of a base there is for original comic art collection. And so having an art dealer that can price you correctly and can put your work in front of collectors, and he also handles my convention stuff, because I can't handle any of that. So that's been fundamental, really.
Yeah, for our situation, we have partners like my wife Julie handles the business end for various things. We have Daniel, who handles licensing negotiations and contracts. That's Julie's son. Julie's daughter, Emmy, does production work, merchandising, and she sets up conventions. Jerry, who's a business partner, used to work with Stan Lee, scheduling and all that, and he handles negotiations such as with animation or with conventions. And I'm just left alone. I can do whatever, keep drawing. So it's great. It works out well.
All right. I think delegation is an important tool. That's what I'm getting from the.
Also, people you can trust and people that they're going to check in with you. These people aren't just working autonomously, and we have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I used to do everything myself, and just to give up the business end. And we also have a editor, Justin, which we pay ourselves out of our own pocket. He's our liaison with publishers and some contracts, and we're going to do a Kickstarter in about a month and a half, and he's responsible for that.
I want to throw this out for questions. Anybody?
Operations manager for creative departments for marketing. Now, understanding how I manage my writers and designers and what should be automated, what needs to be produced in a certain way. For the ones who use digital as well as a conventional drawing, when do you decide, hey, this has to be done by hand, or this needs to be done via computer?
That was an early decision. I wrote and drew the first issue of Mascard. I wasn't going to do hand lettering, so the lettering was digital, but I could only afford black and white printing for my first self-published issue. And just like Zoe, I needed to eat, so I was selling my pages super cheap right out of the gate. By the time I got a publishing deal with a publisher who wanted to do it in color, I didn't have the originals to color. The only way to color it would be digitally. And so that's what it's been ever since. Colors and letters are digital, everything else is traditional. And that's just, it's not a decide like, oh, this would be better this way or this would be better that way. That's just the workflow that's worked, and I've just kept it.
Anybody else? Okay. Any other questions? Tintin.
Yeah.
Tintin.
So I'm also kind of into making comics, and I'm still advancing on that path. Not a whole lot, but my current skills, I've advanced definitely, but I will say that it doesn't quite match what's in my head. So what I'm curious about is, how long did it take for you to actually get your actual work to match what was in your head? If that is, your work currently actually does match what you imagine.
I've been able to get it to match what I was seeing for a very long time. I was, even as a little kid, I was obsessed with drawing. And even as far as writing and humor, even when I was a kid, I watched things that I thought were funny. And I kind of tried to figure out, why does that work? What's the timing and all that kind of stuff. But as far as the art goes, you just have to practice it. You just have to, I know what I think it looks like, and you just got to make it look like that. And I've been able to do that pretty much the whole time.
Before my first book came out, I was drawing in a very different art style. I wanted to be one of those really just intricate kind of manga-esque, but I don't know what I was going for. It's kind of hard to explain with words, but I was trying to go for this, very, very intricate, very detailed look, and it just wasn't coming out how I wanted. I didn't think it was bad, it was fine, but it wasn't where I wanted it to be. And so when I first started coming up with ideas to make the first book I wanted to do, I purposefully drew it in an art style that wasn't mine, if that makes sense. I went for a really stripped back, really kind of underground look for it, which is kind of very strong blacks and whites, very simple, simple faces, but very detailed backgrounds. It was just kind of a complete 180 to what I was doing before, because I felt like I can't draw the way I want, but I really want to do this book and I need to just make it happen. And so I kind of just created this different type of style. And after I was done with that book, I felt like I kind of broke free of that cage of needing to draw how I saw in my head, sort of. And then after that book, I kind of paired the two art styles together, and now I'm at this kind of like middle ground thing. It feels like kind of thing. It's not quite how I wish I could draw. I wish I was better, but the way I've developed works for me. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm ever going to draw how I see it in my head, but yeah, forcing myself to draw in a different style helped out with me.
Your drawing style is really good. The emotions from all the characters are always very clear and really powerful.
That's the other thing. So I think that for me, it's like storytelling, or the atmosphere or the emotion that's coming from the art is more important than, you know, anatomy or any of that stuff. So.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I think it's normal that you're never 100% satisfied with what you're doing, but you have to manage that in a way where it just helps you try to do the next thing a little better, you know, without crushing pressure. I think there is a threshold for when you're learning to draw before you start a comic. There's definitely stuff you need to know before you just push through. You have to be able to draw a character over and over. You have to know, you know, some basics about perspective, about proportions. But beyond that, I think there are young artists who spend way too much time spinning their wheels thinking, I'm not ready, my skills aren't where they should be. Well, the way you learn these skills is by doing a comic. You're going to be better at page 22 than you were at page 3. And then you're going to be better on issue 2 than you were on issue 1. You're going to be better at issue 4 than you were at issue 2. You get better. At some point, that plateaus out where you're advancing by millimeters. And don't beat yourself up if it doesn't match what's in your head. The best thing is to try to figure out what's not working and what can I do to solve that. Is it about my line quality? Is it about proportions? Is it about accuracy? Is it about emotion? Whatever it is, just go, I want to work on that next. And when you get to a point where you can draw a character a couple times without it looking like a totally different character, when you understand some basics about perspective, try drawing a comic. You'll get better at it just by doing that.
I'm like Jeff in that Usagi right now is currently the way I want it to be. I have gone back and redid one story, called Tomoe's story, because we couldn't find the original artwork for any stats of it. And I redrew it. And when comparing the redrawn pages to the original pages, I kept thinking, why did I make that decision back 20 years ago? I questioned everything, like why did I use that perspective or things like that. And at that point I realized I actually grew as an artist and storyteller. And that happens. And that for me, even though we lost those original artwork, the originals, that was kind of like a blessing. It opened up my eyes that, hey, maybe I am getting better.
We're running short on time, so I want to end with this question. Even though 3/4 of this panel primarily are known for funny animal books and all ages fare, all 4 of you have done work that had to have been emotionally challenging, to say the least. You've had careers that have gone on long enough, you have to have some sort of self-care tools. What do you do? Is it turning away from the thing? Is it going into the work? What do you do?
I don't think anybody's down. Answer to that.
Well, then the panel's done. Great. We're done. Yeah.
I think the answer's going to be different for all of us, but for everyone out there, it's some blend of having a support system and knowing what works for you. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it is leaning into the work and saying, I have to force myself to. Diane Schutz is going to come get me.
Right.
But there are other times where leaning into it's more destructive. It's like you've got a headache and then you decide to try to solve a Rubik's Cube. Like you're just making it worse. And that's all about knowing yourself. And support system is also other people, whether it's friends or a significant other. And being able to talk about stuff that isn't even the comic or even emotions. Sometimes it can be just talking about the comic, like you stressed out and emotional and like on the verge of tears. But if I just go, this comic's bumming me out, I don't know what to do with the story, or I don't know how to draw this thing, I can just talk to another artist. Sometimes just in telling them what my problem is, I've already figured out how to fix it before they've had a chance to answer. And sometimes they have an answer that helps even more, but that's knowing yourself and just then trying to do the best for yourself.
Yeah, I have a great support system, the whole family, and like I said, we work together. I also have standing Zoom meeting with a bunch of cartoonists, Zoe Thorogood, Scott Shaw. We meet every Friday on Zoom. And I live in an area where it's a great hiking area, and I like to get away and just go hiking. Jeff visited me, and it's a neat area. But for me, it's just sometimes just having to get away. I try to work every day. Once in a while, we just have to get away from things.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like drawing, like, art is therapy until it's not, if that makes sense. I find it most of the time it really helps. But then, yeah, if you hit a wall, I'm a big walker. I like being outside and looking at ducks and things. That tends to help. Also, I like to have I'm quite a hermit. And a few years back when I started doing cons, I really struggled with it. But now it's like part of my process now is going to a con, getting out there, speaking to people who read my work, and meeting other artists, and like doing all these things that get me out of my bubble. And then I also feel refreshed. I'm away from my drawing board for a few days. I remember, oh yeah, comics. I love comics. Because it does, if you have months at a time sitting at an art or drawing comics, you just, I'm going to do this to myself.
Right.
I think if you're working with a scene, that's sad or something, it doesn't get to me too much because it's probably like being an actor. You have to kind of allow that emotion to get loose a little bit, and that can be hard. The only time I really had problems, and maybe I can't even talk about it because I might start to get emotional. In fact, I'll just stop. Okay. But you can, I'll say you can use that energy or that emotion, and you can get it into the story if you need it to, and it works.
I've asked that question at some other panels that I've done with other cartoonists. One of the answers that keeps coming up, get a dog. Specifically because they need to be walked, so it'll get you up from the table. Go out and walk the dog. And that concludes our time. Can we give
Thanks again for listening, and keep an eye out for our next episode this coming Thursday. Please feel free to like, subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you are given the opportunity to do so. It really does help us get the word out about what we've got going on here in our own little slice of the multiverse, and we would all greatly appreciate it. Until we meet again, my name is Greg. Please stay safe, keep enjoying those funny books, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening. Systems disengaged.